an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering the Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But who's the songbird and who's the snake? Do we know yet? Probably. It's probably Coriolanus that's the snake. That seems pretty much right. In this episode, we're covering chapters 20, 21, and 22, in which Coriolanus is very suddenly sent to 12 to be a peacekeeper. Surprise! Welcome to Unspoiled.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where a dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you?
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So, were you surprised?
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of came out of nowhere. Happened super fucking fast.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any way for me to
and
be
we don't
prepared
get
for
given
this.
an explanation until like after he's on his way there, which is a weird way to structure that, but
I just like all of this talk about what do you think's going to happen after the games and what is it going to look like and da 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 da, and yeah, I didn't expect it to go this way. Mm-hmm. This and it's really like it's very little time is spent on it in real time. Like you just mentioned, we don't even know until after it's already fucking happened. Like we don't really see it happen.
Yep.
And I have to say, I don't think it makes sense.
Really?
Yeah, not the punishment.
Okay, so tell me why.
So he got busted for cheating in a game that doesn't have rules.
The game doesn't.
Like I guess. All right, it's not that they don't have rules because the students were not like. There's no rules within the Hunger Games in the arena. There are no rules. There's clearly a sort of sense of propriety. Mm-hmm. Of like what the expected behavior of the students was supposed to be. But this was the very first time they had student mentors, and I just feel like his crimes, and this is gonna like I can't believe I'm like defending Snow, right? Saying his crimes weren't really crimes, but he knew he was messing around and he was pushing the line. But his punishment seems so severe. I don't know. I just was really shocked by it. And I guess I'm sort of suspicious that it wasn't so much that he broke the rules, but it's that he outsmarted the rule makers in certain ways, and people felt the way about it. You know,
I would also add something to that. He cared about keeping her alive.
Yeah,
and I think that's like probably the worst part is like,
like he's a traitor.
It wasn't just to win; it was like also you have compassion for her.
Yeah,
not allowed.
I think that definitely played a big part in it. He was rooting for her to survive in a way that was, as far as they thought, separate from his own stake in her survival. Like, he wanted her to survive for the sake of her to continue to live, as opposed to, I want her to win so I can then win and I can win the prize and da 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 da. He just started to see her a little bit too much as human, and that is like the biggest crime of all that he committed.
That's a big no-no.
Yeah. And then we get a really quick line later that they just sort of brushed the whole games under the, like, we're not talking about any of this anymore. You know, after it was over with. But that's towards the end of these chapters. The beginning, the games are still happening. And they're all watching Lucy Gray sing to the snakes still. Mm-hmm. And I love this bit too, where there's it seems to be some uncertainty how much of the behavior of the snakes is because of the handkerchief and how much is because of her singing. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of left, unless I really missed something, which I may have because I was reading this in the hospital, but which is really difficult because people are in and out every 5 minutes. I kept getting interrupted.
I'm sure it's very distracting.
It's really, really
not ideal.
But it's kind of left a little bit ambiguous, right? We don't ever get a definitive answer. And
I don't think you missed anything.
Yeah, I like that it's kind of like it could be a little from column A and a little from column B.
Yeah. So, all right, yeah. I love the way that the first sentence is like, Coriolanus squeezed his hands into fists, unsure of the viper's intentions, which really sounds like he's talking about a person that he doesn't like. Like, if out of context, I would think that he was just like, what is that viper trying to do with my girl? But it's actual vipers. But yeah, he remembers her also saying that Snake was a particular friend of mine to that little girl, and just being like, maybe she just kind of has a way with them. And then everybody is watching this as they begin to like calm down and relax.
Yeah,
and Lucky is over here with Dr. Gall on camera, who is stone-faced.
Yeah, everyone else is like swaying in time.
Yep.
Yeah, this woman is unmovable. She will not be moved. Not physically, not emotionally. She is just stoic and that's you never get a reaction out of her. Fucking Lucky is like, take a bow.
Yeah.
And
because it is like Coriolanus later is like, maybe she'll forgive this because it just resulted in this incredibly dramatic moment, which is sort of what they're trying to do now with these games, is like cultivate the drama. But she just doesn't seem real happy here, so I was not anticipating that.
She wanted a fucking bloodbath. Is what she wanted. She wanted a bloodbath, and I mean, the snakes didn't like lose completely. They took a couple people with them, so it wasn't like a complete loss for Dr. Gall. But she didn't. Yeah. This isn't what she wanted to see. And I think it. You guys, I almost said I think it really galls her.
Listen, like a couple episodes ago was like, I think he got pretty snowed by that. And we just have to accept that sometimes their behavior is very on the nose.
And that's but yeah, she was insert synonym for galled by the show that Lucy put on when what she wanted was this bloodbath, and instead we get this moment of this poor district trash captivating everyone and holding everyone in the palm of her hand practically, and has not just the audience eating out of her hand, but has Dr. Gall's little creatures also basically eating out of her hand,
True enough.
And that must have been just awful for her to watch. Like, Dr. Gall must have just been like, this fucking cunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. So she tries to do the whole sort of like, well, this isn't about me. This is about, Gaius who died and yada, yada, yada.
Which is low-key being like, this is not about Lucy Gray either.
Exactly. And it sort of forces Coriolanus into having to do the same thing and just be like, save Lucy Gray for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So,
and he does that.
Went home. Sorry?
Oh, I was just gonna say he does that because Coriolanus understands that, like, I may have pissed Dr. Gall off a little bit, so I'm gonna make sure I lean into her messaging and make sure I lean into the narrative she wants happening right now. And Lepidus goes around and asks all the classmates about Gaius Breen, and they all tell their little stories, and then Coriolanus goes last, and he's the one that, like, brings it back to what Dr. Gall, the message that she wants to go out. And then, like you said, he ends up saying, like, let's save Lucy Gray for tomorrow. And then there's just like a whole half hour of memorial and remembrance. And now it's so late in the game, the Dementors that are left end up just like spending the night in Heavensby Hall. They don't even go home anymore. And we have a moment with Coriolanus and Clemencia finally have an opportunity to sort of have a very soft makeup. Yeah, clearing the air and kind of like getting a little bit closer to making up. He asks her about her scales. And they're finally fading, which is really fucking creepy that it's taking this long for her to recover physically from whatever the fuck happened to her. And he apologizes for abandoning her at the hospital. And she thanks him for what she says is making a fool of myself because she had such a fucking flip out when all the snakes showed up in the arena. She like completely lost her shit. So she thanks him for that. And their friendship. It says their friendship was shakily renewed, which is a nice way to put it.
And I really do want to point out that, like, the reason that he reaches out to her is because he feels like he needs to shore up allies due to the fact that his family is going to lose their home shortly. And he wants to make sure that he has some people on his side to help out in whatever way they're going to need. So he can't be alienating folks right now. So it's not like he suddenly has a conscience. That's true. He's just like, oh, shit, this is probably, like, going forward a bad way to handle this because I'll need her. It's all very tactical.
Yeah, everything with him is. Even when he's operating from a place that feels emotional or sentimental, there's usually a very calculated motive behind it. And, he ends up being such a bastard. And we know responsible for all kinds of horrendous acts and war crimes when he on his rise to power. But there's something, I don't know if I'm not getting soft on Snow, but I think there is something to be said about the choices we make when you come from difficult no matter where you come from, there's choices to be made. But what I'm talking about is when you come from a situation of lacking, of want, and you become sort of like the figurehead that your family is placing all their hopes and dreams on, and you get sort of this almost obsessive motivation to succeed, because it's going to save, that's your success is what's going to save you and your loved ones. And how like that can be in and of itself noble, but then it loses any sort of nobility based on your actions. Like, what choices do you make in order to further that, right? In order to accomplish that goal. And you can, like, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to, like, be successful so that you can take care of your family and even restore your family to, like, the greatness they used to occupy, right? Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with those goals. But the way you feel okay to use people in service of those goals, that's when it starts to get like gross, and you're just not a very good person. And I'm trying to imagine like a younger Snow, like the elementary, maybe early middle school age Snow, as he's turning into this teenager who is driven by this great need to restore his family's glory, and wondering like, it didn't have to be this way. And the little windows we get, like, like his feelings for Lucy Gray and his sort of like awe and respect for her, and his ability to value traits that are in Lucy Gray that he hadn't really been taught to value in people. And so when he sees it in Lucy Gray, and it seems to contradict everything he's been told about district people, to the point that he's convinced himself that she's somehow not even district, right? Because he can't make those two things make sense. I don't know. It just got me thinking about, like, it's not necessarily our motivations that define us, but it's like what we let it motivate us to actually do.
Right.
That ends up being what defines us, you know? And yeah, you know, this whole thing with Clemencia really does start from a realization on his part that, shit, I need all the friends that I can get. So let me go ahead and make up, because I might need her.
Yeah.
And that's the basis.
Yeah,
for this
I think
whole
that's
thing,
fair.
you know? Yeah, he doesn't know how to operate any other way. And he's like 18 and he's already like broken beyond repair.
Yeah.
It's really fucked up. It's really fucked up. It's really sad.
So everybody like hangs out overnight. There's nothing going on. In the morning, when it's like the sun starts to come up, it is obvious that these snakes weren't made for this world. They're all dead. And it says Lucy Gray and Tesley were nowhere to be seen, but the three boys in soggy clothes hadn't ventured down from the heights. Mizzen was sleeping, his body belted to the beam. As the other students filed into Heavensby Hall, Vipsania and Clemencia, who seemed almost normal, sent food to their tributes. And I should note, like, this may be the first time we hear that Clemencia has sent food.
It is.
She is, but Reaper doesn't take it. Which I don't know if it's that he saw that somebody was showing symptoms of poisoning and he thinks that even the food from the sponsors is poisoned. I'm not really sure what his reasoning here is, because maybe he's just like not sure where the poison came from, you know?
Yeah.
We just want to err on the side of caution here.
Yeah, we never really find out what his deal is. Reaper anyway. He's just suspicious of everything and will only trust like the rainwater, these little puddles.
Yeah.
This shit with which one is it? Is it who has the drone?
Tesley.
So yeah,
she goes after Mizzen.
This is kind of fun in a way that like children murdering each other is fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, in that way. Of course.
Yeah. So one of the mentors is bringing a bunch of food out for their tribute, and Tesley shows up with her little drone that we had saw her take, a day or two ago, and she's got it like on a tether to her wrist, and she uses it to hijack the incoming drones that are bringing food and water, and turns them into like a swarm of like wasp or bees or killer birds or something. Basically. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And swarms him with the drones, and ends up, the drones don't necessarily kill him, but they fuck him up enough and make him lose his balance. He's got that one bad leg from earlier in the book, and he ends up toppling down and breaking his neck, and just like that, out of the game.
Done.
And
we fucking Bug is like real smug about this, or no, not Bug. It's Urban is just like, yeah, that's how we do it. That's how we do it, isn't it? You can't fuck with us. And that lasts about 15 seconds
before anything can be done. This the other kid that's out shows up with an axe and just smashes her head right in. Which, I mean, like, the moment of victory and satisfaction was so short-lived. It felt really, really unfair. Like, I felt like she deserved to have at least a full 3 minutes of satisfaction. Before this happened, it felt so unfair.
Yeah, I really kind of just the sheer amount of work that went into this for such a brief payoff, that just does really seem like she got ripped off a little bit.
Yeah. So
let's see. Oh yeah, here it is. I'm sorry, I just wanted to Urban, when he's like knocked out of the game. He could not escape Lepidus' ever-present mic, though, and barely managed to not snarl when he said, "That's it for me. Laugh a minute, wasn't it?" Then he walked off, leaving Persephone to expand on her regrets and her gratitude for the opportunity to be a mentor. I just laugh a minute. There's something about that that's like, it's mild enough language while insinuating something like so specific to me that I really want to kind of keep that in my pocket for those circumstances where I'm pissed, but I'm around people I can't swear in front of. You know what I mean? That sort of feeling. I'm just like, oh, I really want to reach for the fuck right now, but I can't do it. I can't do it. So then we get my favorite moment. Lucky made his entrance in a hat stuck with 5 sparklers. "Hello, Pan Am! Had this hat done especially for the final 5, but they've been sending off their own sparks." He pulled 2 sparklers out of the hat and hurled them over his shoulder blindly. "Final 3, anybody?" One of the sparklers fizzled out on the floor, but the second set a curtain to smoking, eliciting a high-pitched yipping sound and panicked footwork from Lucky. A crew member ran on screen with a fire extinguisher to handle the crisis, allowing Lucky to regain his composure. As his 3 remaining hat sparklers died, the number for sponsors and gamblers began flashing at the bottom of the screen. You guys, this man is such a disaster. I'm just imagining this so vividly, and just like him like being like, oh god, while there are still sparklers on his head that are still going, and he just like the sort of mayhem of that little moment is just really vivid for me.
It's really, and when you think about it, sort of compared to the moment that we just had with 2 children, dying, being murdered in such gruesome fashion, and then this literal clown show.
Lucky would not last 30 seconds in that arena. That'd be it.
Oh my god. like he just like in the fun like all right. And so today, like you guys will hear this, and the episode will be out in a couple of days. But I'm reading this. We're recording this the day after July 4th, where like people are setting off fireworks and sparklers and setting shit on fire everywhere around them. So I want to be like this asshole just flipping sparklers over his shoulder blindly, not paying attention. That's like, how wild and crazy is that? But no, that's just what people do all the time.
Yeah, feels uniquely American, actually.
It really, really does. It really does. Ugh. So there's like it is a quick aside. There's a wildfire. Well, I don't know if it's a forest fire happening in New Jersey right now, and every time they report, it's I think it's like down in going towards the Pine Barrens down that way, and but every time they report on it, the news keeps making a point of saying they don't think it was related to any fireworks. And I'm just like, yeah, sure.
I mean,
sure it wasn't.
it seems kind of early to be okay
being so certain about how it started. But I really don't know how it started. I mean, it's not a very heavy populated area, so it could be anything. Could have been a campfire, or brush fire, or who knows how that shit starts. But the fact that they have to say that, because we're all just like automatically like, what asshole set off fireworks and like caused this fucking natural disaster,
conflagration. Yeah.
Like, that's where we are as a country, where they have to be like, no, it wasn't fireworks.
God. Like, yesterday, Owen and I, it was like it was like 11:45 p.m., and we're like chilling on the couch. We had been out where there were fireworks, and Pippin had no reaction. He seemed totally unfazed by them, which is great. Oh. But somebody, like 3 houses down, was firing off full fireworks in the middle of the street, and it was so loud, and it was almost midnight, and Owen like got up and went outside because he was about to and he went out, and as soon as he's out there, there's nobody there. Fireworks have stopped. Nothing was seen. He's like, I don't even know where it was coming from. And he comes back inside and he sits down, and we start the show up again. And 5 minutes later, 2 more go off, and he's like, oh my God, I'm going to kill somebody. He goes back out. Nothing. They were like, it was like they knew, and they were just like trying to prank him personally. I hate that shit, you guys.
Maybe it was ghosts.
The loudest ghosts I ever heard.
All right. So
Coriolanus is looking for Lucy. She's hiding in tunnels. He's like really wanting to be able to give her supplies and stuff, but he has to like hold on to his hat a little bit. And when she finally does come out, she has this bottle that she dips in the puddle and swirls it around and pours the water back, which is obviously her poisoning the puddle.
Yes.
And this is great. I always love these moments of being like, oh, and that's how they started this. Her lips moved as she counted the fallen. She's trying to figure out who's left in the games, Coriolanus said into the mic that Lepidus had pushed in his face. Maybe we should put it up on the scoreboard, joked Lepidus. I'm sure the tributes would find that helpful, said Coriolanus. Seriously, that's a good idea. So that is what we eventually get.
I love too this moment, and I think you had mentioned it, and I may have talked over you when you're talking about Reaper not eating anything, but Clemencia thinks it's her personally. Yes. She says he doesn't trust me enough to eat anything I send. Like, she's taking it very, very personally. Which I think tells us something about her, though I'm not sure what exactly, but I feel like that's an insight into her. because before she was saying, oh, he's too stupid, he's too stubborn, he's not smart enough to, and this time it was like, he doesn't trust me, which felt like a shift. But it ends up not really mattering because Lucy Gray has a plan.
I was kind of wondering if it's not like her guilt speaking a little bit because she knows she hasn't been keeping him supplied at all.
Mm-hmm.
So she is kind of knows there's a reason maybe he shouldn't trust her because she does not look out for him. And she's just sort of putting that on him, even though it's her conscience a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is.
Speaking as somebody with empathy.
I think it is a little bit of a guilty conscience. I don't know if it's guilt because of the way that she's been withholding, or if it's, guilt at her being just part of the whole establishment in general. And, she's, you know what I mean? And she's just feeling sort of complicit, and she's feeling sort of complicit in all that. But yeah, so Lucy, like you said, she comes out and she does this little thing at the puddle, where she dumps out the water and swishes and makes it look like she's like going to fill her little own personal bottle of water. And right at that time, Snow starts to send a bunch of shit out for her, which actually is really good timing because that allows her to just throw her little bottle away. So it looks really very natural. Like, oh, I don't even need this anymore. He sent me all this new good stuff. And she eats and then, gets some like stash, puts it in like her pockets and shit. And then she starts this thing where she goes to what they're calling the morgue now, the bodies and tributes that Reaper has been assembling, and she starts fucking around over there.
This is weird, right?
It's super weird to read. Like, I feel like it doesn't take long for us to get what she's doing, and I feel like I got it right before it was spelled out, like what she was doing, because Reaper has not been eating and drinking. He's so weak. And she starts, but the thing that's weird is that and then he's dead. Not to spoil it for you guys, but we never really find out what his deal was with this thing, right? And why he's so like obsessed with it.
It feels like he's really fixated. He's
really. Yes, to the point where he's chasing after her, not to get Lucy, but he's trying to undo the things that she's doing to mess up his little. I hate to call it a morgue, but his what? I don't know what. Morgue is like the best. You can't call it like a cemetery because he's not burying them, and it's not like, I don't know. Yeah, I think morgue feels like it's not doing enough service to whatever he was trying, like whatever emotional thing might have been behind it. It feels like too clinical, which makes me not want to use it. But I can't think of a better word other than the only other word that comes to mind is tribute. But that's confusing because they're tributes. So, like, he's making a tribute out of the tributes.
Interesting.
It's
Inception.
But yeah, he can't, like, just let her move anything. Like, he could have just stayed where he was and let her move the flag. She drags the body out of the way, and he is just like, absolutely not. No, and ends up chasing her around and getting all like weary and heat stroked and fucking disoriented and weak, and until he can't do anything but go try to get some water from his little puddle. And we all know how that worked out.
Yeah, this is the suddenness of his death. I'm wondering if that there was anybody watching who was suspicious, because like clearly something was weird about it, but I don't know that they would have caught what was really happening if it hadn't been for finding the compact on her later, which is a shame because I totally know she's meant to bring it back to him, but she should have ditched it in there. She really, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But, I'm curious if she had ditched it, would they, because we find out later that, they had really, they claimed they found some stuff because they were checking the area from the bomb, like a crime scene sort of investigation. Right. So I don't know, like after everybody is dead, if they would have gone back into the arena to like do any, like obviously they're not doing autopsies on anybody, any of these fucking kids, so the poison would never really be discovered. They really probably
not, unless I think if it were something really obvious, like they had like a foam at their lips of a certain color that would give it away. I think then, but like nothing that requires real investigation, I don't think they bother with.
Yeah. I mean, the way he dies after everybody kind of watched him not eat or drink for days and days, and then he drank some like disgusting muddy puddle water and then like choked it back up. They probably could have gotten away with it if it, well, it turns out they had the handkerchiefs though.
True.
So 2 of them turns out.
Yeah, he really fucked it up.
Yeah, and I can't fucking the goddamn initials on it. But this whole thing too with Reaper dying, because Reaper dies and nothing happens. Everybody just stares at the screen for a little while, like, and there's no like declaration of a winner. Everybody is just staring, and finally Lucy Gray goes down and like checks Reaper's pulse for herself. And sort of, closes his eyes, and that signals
a half hour of her sitting and waiting. Like, that's so weird.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. But again, this is before trackers and shit are inserted, you know, and it wasn't like the kind of death where, like, because all the other people that have died, we've had, people snapping their necks where it's like obvious, or getting a trident in the back, or getting her head with an axe. This was is he just passed out from dehydration, or is he like really, really dead? And there's like no mechanism in place for game makers to go in and confirm the death of a tribute yet. Which is just so wild, because we know from the original trilogy that the minute like the cannon goes off like that, they know immediately, like all vital signs, they're dead. And this is just like, I guess we'll just hang out and watch until the last living kid lets us know that they're the last living kid.
Yeah. It's like it's just so odd to read how like disorganized and poorly thought out this all is at this point. So Coriolanus gave a spontaneous hug and hurried for the lab, grateful for the moment of quiet. He felt his lips stretching into an insane grin. He had won. He'd won glory and a future, and maybe love too. Any minute now, he'd have Lucy Gray in his arms. Oh, snow lands on top. It most certainly does. He forced his cheeks to relax as he got to the door and straightened his jacket to help conceal the tipsy mess he actually was. It wouldn't do somehow to let Dr. Gall see him like that. When he opened the door to the high biology lab, he found only Dean Highbottom sitting in his usual place at the table. Close the door behind you. Coriolanus obliged. Perhaps the dean wanted to congratulate him in private, or even apologize for abusing him. A falling star might one day have need of a rising one. But as he approached the dean, a cold dread washed over him. There, arranged on the table like lab specimens, were 3 items. An academy napkin stained with grape punch, his mother's silver compact, and a dingy white handkerchief. The meeting could not have lasted longer than 5 minutes. After word is agreed, Coriolanus headed directly to the recruitment center, where he became Panem's newest, if not shiniest, peacekeeper.
Yep. And then I was like, I beg your pardon? he went where to do what?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And apparently the dean said, "Do you hear that, Coriolanus? It's the sound of snow falling." Couldn't resist it.
Couldn't help
I'm
himself.
not mad at it.
Yeah. I was really, really dissatisfied with the reveal when Coriolanus is like, I thought you and my father were friends. And he's like, I thought we were too. And then just like all of this venom he had towards his mother, you know, which really caught me off guard. I was like, where's all that coming from? I recognized it immediately every time she pulled it out, vapid. I was like, what the what?
Right?
Like, so you wanted to get with her and she didn't want to get with you. She went for the snow. Is that what's happening here? Is like Dean Highbottom, please, that cannot be the origin story. I can't have another fucking story that is some dude who never got over the fact that he didn't get the girl in high school that he thought he was supposed to have. Like, I can't do it again. Like, I just... So, I really hope...
I'll just tell you, that's not it.
Thank God. Thank God.
That's not it. And yeah, so, and when Coriolanus is like, why aren't you like publicly announcing all of this? The dean says, well, we have a tradition of offering students who are expelled a lifeline. As an alternative to public disgrace, you may join the Peacekeepers by the end of the day. And Coriolanus is like, okay, but what's my story for why I would do that when I've just won the games? And he's like, because you're super patriotic. Because you think that this will be a better learning experience. Who fucking cares? Just go do it. You'll figure it out. And then, yeah, why do you hate me so much? And my Ted's dead. He's been dead for years. He deserves to be, but he seems very much alive in you.
Yeah.
That is such a thing of just being like, it's a real shame that your dad is being kept alive in your heart and memory. What a bummer. Like, that is just damning.
You know, like, yeah, like the thing about the mom too, the way he says it, like, how many times did I see your mother pull it from her handbag to check her face, your pretty vapid mother, who somehow convinced herself that your father would give her freedom and love out of the frying pan and into the fire, as they said. So that suggests that his mother came from some type of situation that was not great, whether it be her family standing, something that was going on in her family that was affecting her, like whether it was abuse, whether it was emotional or physical or whatever. And she saw Coriolanus' father as a better option than what she currently was in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. And we don't really get any more information about what their falling out was. And I don't know if we ever get that or if it even matters. I'm just super curious about it. I wonder if, like, I'm fixated now on both Coriolanus' mother and father in Highbottom, because there's just as clearly something there, you know, that's important.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what it is. Maybe they had a falling out over his mother. Maybe that was what they fell out over. I don't know. But it doesn't sound like Dean Highbottom holds the man that Coriolanus' father became in high regard. You know?
Not at all.
He's got a lot of fucking resentment built up to be holding such a torch for a dead man. That he's still that mad. And this guy's been dead for a while now. Though I do get that kind of petty. I do understand it. It does kind of speak to me
Oh,
on a
yeah.
level that I'm not like super proud of. So then the last thing Highbottom says to him is the one thing that Highbottom says, which is like Coriolanus to a T, when he says, I thought, why do you hate me so much? I thought you were my father's friend. The dean says, I thought I was too once, but it turned out I was only someone he liked because he could use them. Even now. Which, that even now.
Yeah.
But he's dead now. He's been dead for years. He tells him, you better hurry. The office closes in 20 minutes. If you run, you can just make it. Diabolical.
And so he run, not knowing what else to do. He tries to go see Dr. Gall. She won't let him in. He gets a guard to bring her his paper, which is weird, but okay.
Yeah.
And
he thinks about
has to go
begging
say
her.
Goodbye to his family.
Yeah, he thinks about begging Gall for help, and at the last minute, he's like, I refuse to let her feed on his desperation, so he just writes in the margins, thank you. Which is kind of baller to just have a turn of paper in and be like, thank you on the side. What else?
Really
Anything
weird.
else?
So Tigris helps him to pack his stuff. He just gets basically like a cigar box that he can, anything that fits in there, he can bring. And he brings an old compass that had been his father's, a photo of his mother holding him as a toddler, of his father in uniform, of Tigris and the grandmam, of a few of his friends. His mother's compact, of course. Well, not the compact, because he doesn't have that anymore. He has the powder that's wrapped in a silk scarf, 3 handkerchiefs, stationery with the Snow family seal, his Academy ID, a ticket stub from a childhood circus stamped with an image of the arena, a chip of marble from the rubble of a bombing. He felt for all the world like Ma Plinth with her handful of District 2 memories in her kitchen. Life comes at you fast, Corey!
Yep. Yeah, I really wanted him to take a moment and reflect on that feeling, but I guess there's no time.
That's not his way anyway.
Like, I wanted him to really sit with that and be like, maybe I was being kind of a dick, even though he was never nothing but like pleasant on the outside to her. We all know what he thought of her. And I wanted him to really have a moment of being like, I was being an asshole. But nope. And then Tigris says, I want to talk about what she says to him about the Hunger Games, though, about how unfair it is that they're punishing him. She says, you were set up to fail. The Hunger Games are a natural, vicious punishment. How could a good person like you be expected to go along with them? And he says, you can't tell anyone else that. That shit is not safe for you to be saying out loud. Be very, very careful.
Yeah.
But her assessment of her cousin, this idea that he is too good of a person to go along with the games, is really interesting because it is really off base.
It's wrong you're looking for.
And I guess that is what love of family can do to you. And also she's not in his head. So she doesn't know, she only knows what he shows,
Yeah.
She doesn't know how, like all the people on the outside that see the things that Coriolanus does, you could really mistake them or just assume they're sincere or think he's being genuine without having any idea that in his head he's running a tally. He's got like a ledger, and there's checks and there's like people in this column and people in that column, and what can I get from this person and how could I use this person, and all of that shit is internal. You can't always clock when someone is doing that. And I don't know if I'm a peer of his, like Highbottom sees Snow for who he really is. But that's because he has the benefit of having seen this before. You know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's that he's like so perceptive or anything.
Right? It's just that he has met Coriolanus before. So you know, but like if you're a peer of Coriolanus and you don't have a frame of reference, then you just think, oh, here's this guy and he's being nice to Sejanus, and oh, how nice of him to talk to Clemencia in the dark, and oh, look at what he's willing to do for Lucy Gray. And I wonder, would I be fooled? Would we be fooled by him?
I've said over and over that he would fool me. I absolutely think he would. I think it would be the sort of thing where I would sense something about him was insincere, but I would never know how deep it went. Because you can always sort of tell when somebody's like a bit of a phony, but that doesn't necessarily make them like as cynical and cut off from like other people and compassion as he is, you know? There's all kinds of reasons for people to be false and make nice and whatever. And it, you know, some of it's just like a mechanism of I'm supposed to do this because society expects it and I have to be a good girl, you know, like, and there's all kinds of motivations for it. So I probably could tell something with him isn't like for real, but I don't have I don't think at all that I would really get this dude's the like
depths of it.
Hardcore, just a user, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It requires a sort of cynicism that like is much as I may claim to possess, even I don't have.
Right.
You know, like the impulse to want to think the best of people has bit me in the ass more than I care to recount, despite my claims of, you know, not trusting people and thinking people are full of shit, which I generally do with both of those things. But at the end of the day, I do always tend to lean on, they didn't really mean it that way.
Yeah.
They didn't, there's got to be a better explanation than just they're a piece of shit. You know, that's like my last that's the last place I want to go. Though I do find as I get older and the world burns faster and faster, I get there quicker and quicker, you know, as I get older.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I definitely get that. So he gets sent out, gets shaved, vaccinated, put in a uniform, and is just like, man, this whole thing is so, like, it's erasing who he is in a way that he clings to his image so much that this is really sort of breaking him down to his components in a way that he isn't prepared for. And it really seems to get him down more than anything else so far. And he's really worried about what people are saying about him at home because he doesn't have any control over the kinds of rumors that are going to start to crop up and how that's going to affect Tigris and the Grand Man. Like, all of this was supposed to be for them, and he really feels like he failed them.
He says, I'm being erased, and to erase me, they must erase the games. And that ends up being very true when he ends up talking to Sejanus later. But he says to erase the games would be to erase Lucy Gray as well. And he starts wondering about what happened to her. He'd been told that she'd been sent back to 12, but he's just like, they could tell me any fucking thing. They're under no obligation to be truthful with me. They could just take her off to jail. They could just kill her. Or worse, they could just turn her over to Dr. Gall for God knows what. And he starts to be overcome with emotion and then has to like pull himself together because he can't be seen on this train, you know, crying. Yeah.
That is not a way to start things off. That's not good for you. So he asked to be put in 12, of course. And they're just all sort of like, really? Nobody wants to go there? But sure.
Yeah.
And he gets really drunk on the train over as well, so that he arrives in the worst possible like state.
I just wanted to say, it turns out that when he asked to go to 12, they're like, oh, that's weird. Nobody ever wants to go there. Because people weren't really checking for the games in the way that we're accustomed to as readers, right? Like, we know that. The book told us that, like, the whole point of this was to drive engagement up. And, you know, that was the whole, like, premise of having the mentors and all that shit. But, like, I would have thought that, like, in my mind, he goes to the Peacekeepers and says, I want to go to 12. They take one look at him and go, absolutely not. But they're like, whatever, dude. Whoever you are, it's fine. Whatever.
Like, oh, that's weird. Okay. It's not like, oh, you're that guy. Of course you want to go to 12 and be with your honey or whatever.
Right? There's like, and then, and when he is, you know, eventually, like, gets to his barracks and shit, like, nobody knows who he is. Like, he realizes that the notoriety that he was feeling and experiencing was just limited to the other people in his circle who were also involved in the games or the school or whatever. Like, nobody else really gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Which is good for him because he wants that, but I also have to feel like it's got to kind of be like, oh, but I'm a superstar.
But
what do you mean you don't know? Right? Like, what do you mean you don't know who I am?
So eventually, once he gets like sent in, I love this description, you guys, especially like anybody who's lived in areas with profound humidity. This is so accurate. The heat and humidity turned the air to some state halfway between a liquid and a gas, and he could not confirm if he was inhaling or exhaling. Moisture bathed his body with an unfamiliar sheen that defied wiping away. Sweat didn't dry, only deepened. His nose ran freely, the snot already tinged black with coal dust. His socks squished in his stiff boots. After an hour's trek down the cinder and cracked asphalt streets lined with hideous buildings, they arrived at the base that was to be his new home. And then later, he's taking a shower. Coriolanus stood in the shower, head back, gulping down the lukewarm water that flowed from the tap. He toweled off 3 times before he accepted the dampness of his skin as a perpetual state and dressed in clean fatigues. Oh, that just really hit home. Like,
I woke up today.
I truly... It's the worst, man. It's the worst.
I woke up today. It was 95 degrees with 97% humidity.
Oh my God.
It was the fucking word.
Jesus.
Like, yeah, this is no way to live.
Yeah. We're starting to get real humid here right now because Barrel's heading in our direction.
Oh.
So, it's pushing that towards us, and you know, we're right in the
Barrel
crosshairs of it. Barrel. Honestly, I really want to talk to whoever names these storms because sometimes they fucking nail it, and sometimes I'm just like, did you just have a neighbor die? Like an old man that you decided to just honor him? What is this?
I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I read somewhere that they name all the storms in advance for the whole season. They just have a whole list of names ready to fucking go. And then as the storms come, they're like, all right, here's your A storm, here's your B storm, So someone had compiled a list for 2024 hurricane season. And yeah, they were like, you know what? Barrel.
Nailed it. Amazing. Perfect.
No notes.
Have we had Hurricane Bertha?
I'm sure we have. That feels like something that has to have happened. I'm going to look up who named storms.
Indeed we have. July of 1996.
Oh,
Hurricane Bertha.
that's further back than I thought.
Hurricane Hortense. Hurricane Hortense. Who the fuck uses that name anymore? That's not even like something that we know how to pronounce these days.
What year was that storm? That's
1989.
89.
No, wait, no. It was the first one since 1989. It happened also in 96. So Bertha and Hortense were both the same year. Wow, okay. Oh my God, are you kidding? Another one from 96. Hurricane Caesar Douglas hyphenated. Excuse me?
While you're on whatever site you're on, you gotta just, real quick, who's naming these storms? Real quick. What committee?
Hold on. I just really want to, the hyphenated is beyond the pale. Then there's Hurricane Edward in 1996, but it's spelled Edouard. Nobody who has ever lived has spelled Edward like that. I am not buying it. Edward. No! What? Some fucking psychopath is out here doing this. Okay. I'm looking at it.
I think I remember that storm. 1996?
Yeah.
I think I might remember that storm.
The World Meteorological Organization, a specialized agency of the United Nations, has been responsible for naming hurricanes and tropical storms in the Atlantic Ocean and other regions since the 1950s. The WMO maintains and updates lists of names through a strict procedure that includes committees that include national meteorological services in the region the storms can affect. The names are chosen to be familiar to the people in each region and do not consider alphabetical sequence or any particular person. The WMO uses 6 lists of names that rotate every 6 years. In 2023, the list that starts with Arlene and ends with Whitney will be used again in 2029. However, names can be retired if a hurricane is so severe and deadly that it would be inappropriate to continue using the name.
So we'll never see a Hurricane Katrina again.
Yeah. Retired names include Floyd, Harvey, Katrina, and Ida. Mm-hmm. If more than 21 named tropical cyclones occur in a season, the WMO may use a supplemental list of names, such as letters from the Greek alphabet. Oh. Why? There's lots of names, though. Why would you? Oh my God, there's a list. I get to see the list.
Yeah, the list comes. The list. Yeah, they do. They do it ahead of time.
So, okay. You ready for 2024? Alberto, Beryl, Chris. I cannot believe we're going from Beryl to Chris. Are you fucking for real? Debbie, Ernesto.
Hurricane Debbie, not Deborah. Mm-hmm. Debbie.
No, Debbie. Debby.
Oh, we're getting way too casual.
Francine, Gordon. I don't know if this is Helena or it's Helene.
That's usually Helene.
Helene? Okay. Isaac, Joyce, Kirk, Leslie, Milton, Nadine, Oscar, Patty, Raphael, Sarah, Sara, Tony, Valerie, William, Hurricane Tony. Can we please be serious?
No, this is Debbie, Tony. No.
2025 has some really good ones. Hold on. We've got, I'm not reading all of them, but the primo ones, we've got Chantal. Love it. Barry. Barry. Dexter.
Oh my God.
Humberto.
Ooh.
Imelda. Jerry. Jerry.
You know what's funny? Because you read the names are also like sort of regional. So like Hurricane Tony, is that like slated to hit the Northeast? Is that shit coming to where I live?
Like a Jersey fucking name, right? There was a podcast I was listening to where they were recounting being in like one of those carnivals where there's a dunk tank and a clown sitting to get dunked who just mocks the people throwing the balls, right? And this clown was apparently like really aggressive with how insulting he was being to people. And there was some teenager that was like really taking exception to this. And he came up and he finally like nailed it and the clown went down. And the guy hosting is like, and then he said, "I'm Tony from Brooklyn. Remember it." And he was like, "Tony, I don't know how to tell you this, but there's a lot of you in Brooklyn. Like, that's not very helpful." That'll be very easy to remember, actually. Last one that I really like is Sebastian. Hurricane Sebastian hits. I like that one.
I feel like he's going to be very polite about the destruction he's going to wreak. I
feel like he's going to be a little bit of a Lothario. He may hit a lot of places. You know, just being like, yeah, you know, I didn't want to be tied down. I just kind of wanted to, you know, sow my oats while I'm young.
I looked up Hurricane Edward spelled with an O, and I do remember it because it killed people in Ocean City, Jersey. Which yes, I was not funny.
Edward,
I'm not laughing at that.
Doesn't feel like Jersey to me. Like I don't like it. It's fine.
They threw that O in there to, you know,
spice it up a little. Debbie's fine. We don't need to spice Debbie up.
Okay, Hurricane Chantal.
Chantal. Yeah, that one. That I like.
Oh my god.
We should do a lot more like black sounding names for hurricanes.
Listen,
I feel like the black community is really being left out of stuff.
We have enough on our plate.
Yeah, fair.
We don't need hurricanes named after us. We're good. They'll just spell them wrong anyway.
We should do hurricanes with the like excessive EIGHs that we have started putting into kids' names lately.
Hurricane Ashley, spelled like LEIG.
And no shitting up. Like, I know that that's a valid spelling, but y'all also know that that's a valid spelling in a region that Americans have just taken and started inserting into names that it doesn't make sense. Like
Kaylee.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there was a girl I heard yelling at her kid in the park a couple years ago, and she was like, "Paisley Madison, come here." And I was like, you cannot be serious. If we're doing hyphenated names, why not? Hurricane Paisley Madison. I think that deserves a look.
In the early 2000s, there was a TV show called Judging Amy with Amy Brennan. And she had like a tween age daughter, like 7th grade, 6th, 7th, 8th grade daughter during the course of the show. And at one point, the daughter is just rattling off names of her classmates and what they have to do after school, blah, blah, blah. And the mom character says, "Why are all your friends named after dead presidents?" Because it was like Madison and Kennedy. Like that was a period that we all went through. We were just all naming our kids.
Yep.
Well, not we all, but
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Another one that I enjoy is on Frasier when we have Daphne getting pregnant and they're trying to decide on a name, and she's like, right. Well, what about Fletcher or Tanner or Cooper? And Niles is like, where are you getting these names from? The big book of medieval professions? Oh my God, that's true.
That's very good. That's good.
Okay, back on task.
They ended up naming that kid something. What they ended up naming him? Because he's on the reboot, and he's got like a.
I don't remember.
His name is like David or something. I think I can't remember exactly, but it
did they. Yeah, they didn't name him after somebody.
I
Martin
don't
for their dad?
I don't think so, because when the kid was born, the dad was. Yeah, I don't. Okay, this is a whole side thing. Never mind. It's not important. Never mind. Never mind.
Okay.
Our tangent started to have its own tangent.
Yeah, God, that's true. So he's being admitted to this, like, with another kid that's really not prepared and wants some reassurance. And Corio is just like, I have no interest in trying to make you feel better, sir. I'm barely getting through this. And they get food, and he has to admit, like, you know what? Upside. I'm going to always have a full belly.
Yeah.
Here,
I'm going to eat better here than I was eating at home. Like, between me and you. Yeah.
By the end of lunch, Coriolanus and Junius had been dubbed Gent and Beanpole, respectively. One by way of table manners, the other because of his frame. Coriolanus welcomed the nickname because the last thing he wanted to hear was the name Snow. And when they have to go do their, like, first exercises and stuff, poor Beanpole is, like, really not doing well and getting, as it's phrased, both baited and abused by the sergeant, and he is crying himself to sleep at the end of the night. And I just felt for that kid so much.
Yeah, it turns out that Coriolanus, because he had the privilege to go to the academy, he's actually got some background in the type of training that these kids are going through, which is really just like endurance training and marching and formation. So Snow is got an advantage that some of these other kids don't have. And we also find out that you can join to be a peacekeeper, but you can't, because Snow asked somebody, like, you don't mind policing your own people? And the kid is like, nah, you don't work in the district that you're from. Like, he says, like, they don't leave you where you're born. So that is a really interesting idea that, like, you can't, I guess it's a weird thing, because in real life, like, I know in some places like Philadelphia used to have a rule. I don't know if it's still true anymore, but they used to have a rule where if you work for the city, you have to live in the city. So, like, if you're going to be a cop, if you're going to be a cop, if you're going to be a Philly cop, you have to live in Philly to be a Philly cop. That used to be a thing. I don't know if it's still
I kind of like that.
Right? And the idea is that used to be the idea was that you would be invested because it'd be your community, right?
Sure, yeah.
But here, the idea is, I'm assuming, if you're arming district folk, you want to, and even though they've signed on with the government, they've signed on to work for the Capitol in the role as a peacekeeper for the Capitol, they don't want you in the same community where you would have ties, because maybe you wouldn't do your job as well, or maybe you would be more likely to be coerced into, joining a rebellion, maybe, or they're going to pluck you. They're going to pluck you out of your community, and drop you down to police these other folks. And because we know that there's this weird separation between districts that almost has an undercurrent of what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say competition, but that's not exactly right. But there's like a little bit of distrust between the districts because everybody's situation isn't equal.
Yeah.
And we know from the earlier books, later timeline wise, that districts closer to the capital are better off than districts in the more further outreach.
Yep.
And so, it really seems like they don't want you to be around your people if we're going to go through the trouble of training you and more importantly, arming you to be representatives of the capital. We need to have you be separated from your people. And it's like the complete opposite of what you would want policing to be. You want policing to be the people that you know, the people that you trust, that they're, you know, and that's not what the Capitol is trying to foster whatsoever. So he's like, no. And he says, oh, these aren't my people. And the way he says it, you know, my people are an 8, you know, I don't know these people at all. Mm-hmm. Like they're a whole separate species.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good point. I like that observation. So then except for Beanpole, who pulled latrine duty for his shortcomings, his bunkmates headed to the rec room to play poker. Coriolanus lingered over his noodles and canned meat. Since Smiley was usually distracting them all with his prattle, it was the first time he had to really take stock of the other peacekeepers. They ranged in age from late teens to one old man who looked to be the grandmam's contemporary. Some chatted among themselves, but most sat silent and depressed, sucking down their noodles. Was he looking, he wondered, at his future? Very depressing moment. And this is when he gets a letter from Tigress. And to summarize, Grandmam is starting to lose it a little bit. Not really knowing what's going on. Their home is going on the market for sale, and they're being taken in by the nightclub owner, Pluribus. And there's a lot of weird rumors going around, but she doesn't really get specific on any of that. And they're selling furniture as well. I'm sorry this is so short, but it's quite late and I have so much to do. I just wanted to get something off to remind you how much you're loved and missed. And he's just really like, this is supposed to be a letter to comfort him, but it just makes him so sad. It's like, might have been better if she hadn't written with all of this news, you know?
Yeah. He's and you know, it's terrible and depressing, but he's such a narcissist that, like, it's, you know, this is what's to happen to the great magnificent Snow family, and what's going to happen to him, the future president, you know, his life tragic and pointless. You know, he sees himself in 20 years, stout and stupid. The breeding beaten out of him, which is a wild thing to think. The breeding beaten out of you is, as the kids are saying on the interwebs these days, that is some nasty work. that is just like that. He is picturing himself being debased, you know?
Yeah.
Everything that was good about him is going to be stolen from him in the same way that his inheritance, and I don't mean like a literal like trust fund, but low key a bit, was also stolen from him, you know? Like, and the only thing that he had left was his social status and his breeding, using his word, you know, his pedigree. And even that's now being tarnished and taken from him. And without it, he's nothing. He says something like, his mind atrophied to the point where nothing but base animal thoughts of hunger and sleep ever crossed it. Like, Jesus Christ, dude.
Yep. And then he's laying on his bunk. He's super homesick, feeling super sad. And somebody comes in and is standing over him. And he's like, are they about to start some shit with me? Because he doesn't even like look at who it is. And a voice that is familiar says, is this bunk taken? And he turns over and it's Sejanus Plinth. And he literally leaps up and hugs Sejanus Plinth, which this boy has to be at the bottom of the barrel right now to be feeling like he wants to do this to this kid.
Right? Like, it feels so real and so sincere, and like, oh, he's so happy to see him. And for a second, like, I lost track of who I was dealing with because it was real. And then I had to remind myself, it's only real because he was just feeling so low and so bad.
Yep.
You know? So even this great joy is really centered in Snow. Like, it's about Snow. It's, you know, but yeah, it's Sejanus. And it was weird because I was so happy to see him. But then I was like, oh, but Sejanus doesn't know what a piece of shit this guy is.
Yeah.
Oh, you know.
What do you think he's doing here?
Sejanus?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he tells us that, you know.
Oh, I don't mean like what I meant. Like, when you were reading this, did you like, what was your assumption? Did you have any sort of thought on it when he appeared at the end of the chapter?
Well, and he gets into his explanation really, really fast. So the first thing I thought was, I was just really surprised to see him. I didn't really even get an opportunity to think too deeply on how he ended up here because he gets into it really fast.
Yeah, that's fair.
There was like,
I'm imagining you pausing dramatically at the end of the chapter.
There really wasn't. I just like, we're right on. But I will admit to, when he hears a quiet voice, I was like, Lucy Gray?
In the fucking barracks, that would be dangerous.
Right, because I couldn't think of who else, you know, like who else it would be significant to be here, and Sejanus was not on my radar to pop up whatsoever. So I was completely surprised to see him. And then I just read like right through. So I didn't spend too much time wondering. And what does he say? He says,
this is a surprisingly warm welcome for the person who almost destroyed you.
Coriolanus' reaction to that is a slightly hysterical laugh as he considered the accuracy of the claim. And my mind went in a very different direction than Coriolanus' mind went. I thought Snow was going to be like, you fucking poked me in all of these spots that like triggered what my version of humanity is, and you made me think about the morality of the game, and you made me consider these tributes as being actual human beings, even if it was just for split seconds at a time. And if it weren't for you, I never even would have considered Lucy Gray to be anything other than a tool, you know, to my ascension. But he doesn't do that. He's thinking of a very specific event, like going into the arena. And then he says, and then the rest of it was too far out of a stretch to try to blame him for anything. So I was just like, oh, I guess that was just me thinking that. I thought for sure that Snow was going to like go into a whole thing there, but he does not.
It's interesting because like he could go into a whole thing and that would be very convincing for Sejanus, but considering some of the reason that Snow is here, it might not be a wise thing to say that sort of stuff out loud.
Oh, no, I didn't think he was going to say it out loud. I expected to have a whole like inner
monologue. I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so we find out that this is Sejanus's sort of punishment and the best that his father could finagle for him. And it cost a brand new gym for the academy to get Sejanus to be allowed to even graduate. And then Sejanus does a very Sejanus thing, which is insist that they also let Snow officially graduate.
Yes.
And Sejanus has brought his fucking diploma with him in his little tiny box, which, you know, when you consider how small the box is that Sejanus was able to pack from home, and that he used that small space and filled it with something for Snow, that is so significant.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty big deal.
It's a big fucking deal. This kid,
Yeah.
man, you deserve, you deserve a better friend than Coriolanus Snow. You really do. You really do.
Oh, also, if you ever wanted to take the officer candidate test, it might matter. You needed to have graduated secondary school. Dean Highbottom brought that up as something that should be denied you. He said you broke some rules in the games to help Lucy Gray. Anyway, he got outvoted. He's really wearing on people. Interesting. Everybody's sick of the Dean's shit, man.
Yeah, they are. They are. I bet that he. Let's see, because Sejanus tells us that. Well, first, no one wants to know what is my reputation. Like, what is everybody thinking and saying about me? And Sejanus is like, well, basically, they're saying that you were smitten, you fell in love with your tribute, and a lot of people have a lot of sympathy for that. And he says it turns out there are a lot of romantics among our teachers, and Lucy Gray made quite a good impression. And but this bit about the officer school, because Snow hears that and is like, I may have a way out. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I may have another path that I hadn't considered before. A path that leads me back up in the ranks, right? Moves me back up, makes me more socially mobile. And, like, he starts thinking about what the Plinths can do to help him and how Sejanus' father might still be of use later on in life. You know, it's just, is this guy even human?
Yeah. Oh, and there's a line that chilled me to the bone. Sejanus says, I haven't heard anything about Lucy being punished. The truth is she's so talented they'll probably want to bring her back next year. Excuse? That sucks. Jesus. But yeah, anyway.
Where were we at? Oh, Sejanus is like, I'm sorry, Coriolanus is like, yeah, I thought of that too. Maybe Highbottom was right about her being sent home. So Snow had considered that as well, which I was like, I don't remember.
Yeah, I thought that was a weird line because I didn't. Yeah, we're in your head, man. I thought we would have known if you did, but all right, whatever. This is one of those things where, like, I don't mind some people really hate this, and it's not something that I mind, but when you're in a character's head and yet there are secrets being kept from you, the reader, despite being in their head. And, like, I think that's fine sometimes if it's done okay. Like, you know, the one that's I always think of is in Gone Girl. The husband is accused of murder, and then eventually we go into his POV, and the whole POV, we never hear him think whether he's actually committed the murder or not. It's never, and like, I get it, but also I have no problem with it because this is what the book is about, you know?
Right.
But this kind of thing where, like, it has been established that we are in on his thoughts in a really, like, pretty heavy way. I feel like that doesn't quite work here. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that because I was just like, I guess I wasn't paying attention at some point.
Yeah, I don't think it's
so there's a whole conversation between the two of them about you know, how low they both got. Snow says, you know, when you came in, I was weighing the merits of suicide. And Sejanus is like, what do you mean? Like, you're free now from Highbottom and Dr. Gall, and the girl of your dreams is, like, right in this neighborhood. Like, the fuck are you talking about? It's a really adorable line. Right now, Ma is packing a box the size of a truck full of baked goods for you. Like, my friend, your life has just begun.
Coriolanus says, I don't know whatever possessed me to ask for 12. completely random, obviously. Sejanus, like a fool, Coriolanus felt himself blush.
Oh my
Aw, precious.
But they do have a moment of being like, but real talk though, like Sejanus says, I don't know if you were kidding about suicide, but it wasn't a fucking joke to me. Like, I had the whole thing worked out.
Yeah.
And Snow says, let's not give them the satisfaction. Which is a really nice thing to say to to a friend, you know, in who tells you something like that. And it's just so wild to me how well Snow performs being a person.
Yeah.
To where I find myself as a reader, like every once in a while, I forget what a piece of shit he is. Yeah, and I start to be like, oh, this is a real moment. And the thing is that's what's so compelling is that I think these sort of glitches when I think that these are real, or as real as he can manage. You know, I think it's real for the 10 seconds that he's saying it. But then the minute the moment is over, he's right back into how he operates normally. Like these moments don't fundamentally change who and what Snow is. He's able to have them without internalizing them in a way that makes him move differently.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, you know? It's like he's Teflon and everything just slides right off. You know? Like nothing sticks.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so weird, this thing he's got with Lucy Gray, because it feels like it's the first thing that he hasn't counted on that's sticking. Even though we, you know, have had many conversations about like his enjoyment of her being like a reflection of him. So there's like a conversation to be had about like whether it's really love that he's feeling and what your definition of love really is. But it's such a strange character, because I think he really does mean it when he says, let's not give him the satisfaction. Like I don't think Snow wants to see Sejanus kill himself. Like, I think he really means it when he says it. But, you know, 2 pages later, when he's in his bunk by himself, he's back to plotting about how he can use Sejanus and Sejanus' family to accomplish his goals.
There's also some interesting stuff with Sejanus saying, like, I overheard some faculty saying that it was a mistake to involve the students in the games, so probably not going to be doing that again. Satyria told Professor Sickle that Dr. Gall is determined to keep it going somehow, a part of her eternal war, I guess. Which, yeah, that does indeed become the thing.
Yep.
And I love this. To remind the districts what beasts we are.
Yep.
What?
That's so good.
I don't know. It's like, you know how she's always torturing that rabbit or melting the flesh off something? Like she enjoys it? Exactly. I think that's how she thinks we all are. Natural born killers, inherently violent. And
the Hunger Games are a reminder of what monsters we are and how we need the capital to keep us from chaos.
Yeah. They
have a nice conversation.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say they have a continue the conversation. And Sejanus is like, it's like the essay that she had us write about how we loved what we loved about the war, as if it had been some big show, like the Hunger Games become just a big show to watch and, you know, and consume. And not only is the world a brutal place, but the people enjoy the brutality. Which, yeah. But this is all shit that we know Snow ends up at some point really buying. Like at some point he gets there, you know. and ends up 100% believing in the necessity, 100% believing that Gall's theory was the correct assessment of humanity as a whole. And I can only imagine what he encounters and sees and maybe even ends up participating in as a peacekeeper. Peacemaker.
Peacemakers are guns, aren't they?
I feel like that's the fucking DC comic that John Cena did. Is that Peacemaker? You guys know what I'm talking about?
I do not. That's not ringing any bells, I'm afraid. Not the person for that.
But yeah, something I feel like Snow doesn't need to be pushed very far to become the President Snow that I know. You know, he's halfway fucking there. But clearly there's going to be a thing or several things that help him on that journey to fully embracing Gall's worldview. Because it doesn't seem like at this point he understands what she thinks, but it doesn't seem like he's 100% bought into it just yet. Mm-hmm. But he's very, very close. And I, quite frankly, am not looking forward to whatever is going to come that gets him there. I feel like it's going to be pretty awful. Not going to be fun to read. It's going to be a real bummer for me.
I feel that.
No, you're supposed to say no. No, that's not how it goes.
I said I feel that, like, in terms of, like, the dread that you have. I'm not saying that's what happens.
Oh, well.
But I understand that dread, you know? I mean, nothing has been good, so why not?
Sure. It really hasn't. Like, the Nothing Has Been Good books. Read along with us.
So then they find out that Saturday there's going to be a band coming for the entertainment, and Lucy is going to be singing, and Coriolanus is like walking on air. He's so excited about it.
The way this kid Smiley is like, oh, I don't know. I can't remember. Some girl's going to be singing. She's supposed to be pretty good. Lucy's something or the other. So, like, this is another sort of indication that the games just were not a big fucking deal. Mm-mm. Because you would think Lucy Gray would come back and be a bit of a celebrity, at least in 12.
Yep.
And the people who live there would know exactly who she is. And it would not be just, oh, some girl, I think her name is Lucy. But no, these guys are just like, some chick. She's supposed to be aight. The disrespect on my girl Lucy Gray's name.
I know.
After she just survived the Hunger Games, right? This is what she gets. It's so unfair.
So then we go into all of our training stuff and learning about guns and target practice. And Sejanus turned out to be a natural marksman and soon earned the nickname Bullseye. Coriolanus could tell the name made him uncomfortable, but he accepted it. Yeah. Which is sort of like, that's how nicknames work. You're not supposed to like it. That's the way it goes.
But like for Sejanus, right, who does not, like, you might as well just nicknamed him Killer. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, that's gonna hit very different for someone like Sejanus, who does not, like, you know, like, to be a peacekeeper for Sejanus, I feel like is going to be a lot harder than it's going to be for Snow. I think when it comes time to actually be in the business of doing whatever they're supposed to be doing, and the brutality,
enforcing the
law, the brutality. You know, I just feel like Sejanus is going to have a hard time with that. You know, he's just so empathetic and so compassionate, and he's going to see these people. There's a description, I think we kind of went over it, or Oh no, it hasn't happened yet. It's coming up now. Where they're driving around 12, and it describes just how bad off the people are in the district. You know,
Yeah.
He says something about
And
like
it works well because I just don't want to skip over, because they find out they're going to have to be like working for a month before they get a paycheck. And so they don't have a way to buy a ticket to the thing with Lucy. And so Coriolanus is like, I don't know what we're going to do. But then they get that hamper full of stuff from Plinth. And they think that they can save this and trade it.
Right.
And so that's the way that they're going to do this. And so they get this description. The Beanpole smileys and Bugs' faces were something to behold as they watched the unpacking of the cherry tarts, caramel popcorn balls, frosted chocolate cookies. And then, you then jump over to them just doing, like, finding out how bad things are in the districts. And these guys, like, even in this sort of militant setting, are still kind of managing to live a luxury life a little bit.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And also the reason why they're driving around is because, and they even get to see this part of the district and leave the barracks area, is because Sejanus and Snow have been plucked from their little unit to go attend an execution.
Yes.
And that's where they're on their way to. Somebody, the rumor is the guy that's being executed was caught trying to sabotage coal production, and he accidentally killed 3 people. And Snow is like, sabotage production? Like, what's the fucking point of that? Mm-hmm. And, again, you know, as book readers, we know what the point of that is.
Yes, indeed.
But to them, they're just like, I don't get it. And Sejanus is like, I don't know, maybe hoping to get the rebellion going again. And to that, Snow is thinking to himself, like, he says, why did these people think that all they needed to start a rebellion was anger? Which I just let that sit for a few minutes before I even read the next line, quite frankly.
Yeah, it does feel like a bit of an indictment. Even though, like, he isn't correct about the info he's working with, I was sort of like, ooh.
I just sat with that for a second. Mm-hmm. And he says they had no army, weapons, or authority. And then it segues into what he had been taught about the war from the academy, which we know is a very biased opinion. And we get a mention of 13, which we haven't heard about since pretty much the beginning of the book. And that they had disappeared in a nuclear puff of smoke along with the Snow fortune. Oh, good. I'm glad I remembered to read that, because I had a second when I read that being reminded about how the Snows lost their money because all their investments were tied up in 13. And how when we were reading the original books and Snow had this like preoccupation with District 12, and we were just like, what is that all about? And then it feels very much like this book now, this Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, is sort of trying to explain Snow's weird fixation with 12 in the movies, at least. But really, 13 is where his energy... That should
be his fixation.
That should be his fixation. If we're talking about childhood trauma and unreasonable and unexplained, like, weird shit, it should have been all directed to 13.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. But they were, like, made to be sort of underground, so there's no target.
Yeah.
To focus on, you know, so.
But there's the idea that, like, the existence of 13 was known to the Capitol. It just wasn't known to the rest of us. So, like, I guess the sort of, what do you call it? The impotence of, like, not being able to act.
Yeah.
On against 13 and all this, like, aggression and resentment and anger he would have towards them from the childhood, feeling like his birthright had been stolen. It had nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You got to find a target that's like available to you, and he just there was nobody in 13.
I would have had all kinds of resources committed to finding a way to exact revenge on 13. I would have had labs. I would have had dedicated scientists.
I think that it's like just they have such powerful weapons that you just don't want to rile them up. Like, you know, once you know that they're still around, the leverage they have is there's just no way of beating that. It seems like
they really did have them in a by the sack, I guess.
Yeah,
that's an unfortunate turn of phrase. My apologies.
Hollow-faced women sat on doorsteps watching half-naked children with sharp rib cages playing listlessly in the dirt. In some yards, pumps attested to the lack of running water, and the sagging power line suggested electricity was not guaranteed. It frightened Coriolanus, this level of want. He'd been broke most of his life, but the Snows had always worked hard to maintain decency. These people had given up, and some part of him blamed them for their plight.
Mm-hmm.
He shook his head.
Too.
We pour so much money into the districts, he said. It must be true. People always complained about it in the capital. We pour money into our industries, not into the districts themselves, said Sejanus. The people are on their own. And there is no indication that Snow hears him at all. It just moves on.
Nope. Nothing.
But I love this. The poverty disturbs him, and you think that it must be like fucking compassion. And no, it's the opposite. Mm-hmm. Can't you just keep yourself from looking so pathetic? I can't believe that you're letting your child play half naked. He may be starving, but put a shirt on so that we don't see it at least. You know, it's just, it's so real. It's such a real point of view.
He doesn't say the Snows always work to maintain our status. He doesn't say the Snows always work to, be presentable. He says the Snows had always worked hard to maintain decency.
Mm-hmm.
That is a fucking wild, wild thing to say. The poverty is indecent. And to your point, like you just said, and you let it show, therefore you are also indecent.
Yep.
It's But you know what? Go ahead. No, you go.
The thing that always strikes me about this, and I think we talked about it in one of the earlier books, was the revelation that I had reading something else about how so much of white culture is about control and not about what's real. It's about what it looks like. And even if you are hungry, you are not meant to look hungry. You are meant to look like you are in complete control of your appetite, no matter what. And if you show that you have a lack of control by being overweight, that is an indication, drunk, whatever. It's always
overly emotional
part. Exactly. And so, they're showing to him a lack of control, and that is sort of, I don't even know the word because I keep wanting to say pathetic, but that's not adequate. It's shameful, and it's just, it's like I said, it's just such a real perspective. People don't put it into those words, but that's what they mean.
That's what they mean.
They talk about the poor a lot.
It's like the idea of whiteness and white supremacy prioritizes decency and civility more than it does actual kindness and compassion. It's rude to call out someone who's harming you.
Yeah.
That's rude. It's worse to be rude than to be harmful. It's it's so fucking backwards and upside down. And it's and like you said, it's about it's about control. It's about controlling yourself, or having the appearance of control over yourself, so that you are then allowed or have the authority or the right to then exert control over other people. Like, if you can't be in control of yourself, then you can't control other people. So you have to always have a veneer of control to justify why you get to control other people.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really
exactly
fucking disgusting. And this is just, it's said so plainly here, and it really is. It just jumps off the page. Like, it really does. And then the way he immediately goes into blaming them. We give them so much money, and look at what they do with it. They just waste and squander it, you know? On what, sir? What are they wasting it on? What are they wasting all the money on? What do you think they're doing with all the money? He has
no idea about how they're actually living, but he drove by and saw them and didn't approve of their appearance, and then extrapolated a whole fairy tale in his mind about what they do to put themselves in this situation.
Yep.
That's how it works. That's how it works, kiddos.
It's still how it works, you know. When you are sitting in your, I don't want to indict too many people, as I said, also in my suburban neighborhood, you know. But
we can indict ourselves also. Let's be perfectly honest, you know,
right? You know, when you watch the news and you see, you know, really economically depressed neighborhoods, and you're like, how do these people live like that? And when the question should be, how are people allowed to live this way?
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Yeah.
It's really like remarkable that we still have this reaction with like the level of wealth that's going on in some people's lives. And we just still haven't made that, like, there's a movement towards that attitude from a lot more people than there used to be, but it is taking so long. Oh, it's just taking so long. Anyway.
We had a
so
conversation.
they just have to, oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, just briefly, had a conversation with my in-laws who are in their late 70s. And, you know, they're like, I'm not sure, like, class-wise, like, where they would fall. But, like, my father-in-law was a tradesman, electrician, and, you know, had, like, a nice, like, middle to upper middle class, like, life for his family. Back when you could do that with, you know, one person working and having a trade and being able to, like, buy a house in a nice suburb and send your kid to a private, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't exist anymore. But he's just railing against the current system and, you know, Medicaid and Medicare and healthcare system, and just like, and I've been part of this family for almost 30 years. I've seen them get radicalized because their state of they've seen everything they work for and not getting the return on everything they worked for, right? Like, and watching how their children are not getting the same opportunities that they had always assumed would be available forever and ever and ever. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad you guys, because it could have went another way, y'all. Could have went another way. They could have been radicalized in an entirely different way, which would have made my life very uncomfortable. So I'm really glad.
Yeah, it's like, it's really a shame that people are so illogical that you have to be grateful they draw the most obvious conclusion, because they can be brainwashed into blaming other poors, which is just wild that works. I don't know how people are bamboozled so easily, but
so well. It works so well. Yeah, it really does. So, but yeah, so they are on their way to this fucking execution.
Hanging.
Yeah. And My God, this thing that they're even gonna do the hanging on is like doesn't even fucking work. So they've got this other janky thing that they've thrown together. We used to just string them up from the ground, but then they take forever to die, and who's got time for that? Indeed, who does have the time for that?
Nobody. Ain't nobody, as they say. Yeah, this is the whole way that this is set up. They're just meant to like stand there and be like threatening, I guess.
Yeah, there's like a whole retinue of more experienced peacekeepers there, and they've just plucked these two up to kind of like fill out, the ranks. There's this one little poor girl, a recruit, and she raises her hand all shy. She's like, "Who are we hanging, please?" What a... I don't know why I laugh so hard at that, because it's just such an insane line.
Some malcontent who tried to shut the mines down, said the major. They're all malcontents, but this one's the ringleader. Name's Arlo something or other. Still tracking down some of the others, although I don't know where they plan on running. Nowhere to run. Okay, everybody out! So, this dude gets brought up, and let's see, where is it? Out of the first, an old car that would have been classified as luxury before the war, stepped District 12's Mayor Lip, followed by a middle-aged woman with dyed blonde hair, and Mayfair, the girl Lucy Gray had targeted with the snake on the day of the reaping. They formed a tight knot at the side of the platform. Commander Hoff and half a dozen officers emerged from a second car, which sported a fluttering flag of Panem on the hood. A wave of distress went through the crowd as the back of the final vehicle, a white peacekeeper's van, swung open. A pair of guards jumped to the ground, then turned to help the prisoner out. Heavily shackled, the tall, lean man managed to stay upright as they escorted him to the platform. With difficulty, he dragged his chains up the rickety steps, and the guards positioned him on one of the two trapdoors. And Coriolanus is supposed to like not be glancing. He's supposed to be like on alert, staring ahead. Yeah. But he's like kind of fascinated by this, which I can understand. And they read out his crimes. They offer a blindfold. He doesn't want it. And they put the noose around his neck. And it's, there's a drum roll that starts, which the drama, why even bother? A young woman with olive skin and long black hair rose above the mass into the air as a man tried to carry her off, but she desperately fought to move forward, shrieking, "Arlo! Arlo!" Already, peacekeepers were closing in on her. The voice had an electrifying effect on Arlo, as his face registered first surprise, then horror. "Run!" he screamed. "Run, Lil! Run! Run!" The clap of the trapdoor release and subsequent twang of the rope cut him off mid-word, drawing a gasp from the crowd. Arlo dropped 15 feet and seemed to die instantly. In the ominous silence that followed, Coriolanus could feel the sweat running down his ribs as he waited for the outcome. Would the people attack? Would he be expected to shoot them? Did he remember how the gun worked? He strained his ears for the order. Instead, he heard the voice of the dead man ringing out eerily from the gently swaying corpse. "Run! Run, Lil! Run!" And that's how the chapter ends.
And that's how it ends. That's really, really weird. That's really weird. That voice after the body is, like, after Arlo was killed. So I don't know if... What are those, the Mockingjays? Right? It's got to be something like that, right? Because Lucy Gray tells Snow about them.
Yeah.
That they exist, right? So that's a thing in this, like, those are a thing left over from the war. So so I figure that's what that is. But that is still so fucking creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that desperate and sad, and it's just repeated endlessly by Bert. Like,
Yeah.
That's just
it's like
spooky. That's so
like
creepy.
the
ugh.
and it made me think of I guess it's the third book when Katniss and Finn get stuck
Yeah,
in that one
and the screaming
wedge of
is
the
in
clock.
the
Yeah. I'm wondering if that's where he. I'm like, it's like, did he get the idea from that? Is that where that came from?
That's interesting.
Like, I don't even know if that was his idea, y'all. I'm just, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. It could have been the game maker.
But,
who was Heavensby, I guess, at the time.
Yeah.
Plutarch.
Yeah. A later Heavensby.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's how it ends. And it's distressing. It is
indeed.
It's not a great place to end a chapter. I mean, I guess it is if you're like writing a book and you want somebody to hurry up and turn the page. But as a reader who can't hurry up and turn the page, it's a terrible way to end a chapter.
Very much agree. Yeah, it definitely feels like, oh, come on.
Right? And I wonder if, like, everything doesn't have to be connected to Lucy Gray just because they're in 12, right? So I'm
absolutely not.
I'm spinning a little bit here, and I know that Lucy Gray is of the Covey, and they are like sort of like separate from like District 12 people in a sense that they kind of travel. You know, their culture is sort of nomadic, and they just happen to be in 12 when shit went down. So I don't know if this guy was one of her Covey people or not, but I feel like it might be. I don't know.
Very well might be.
I also
There's no telling.
The
Covey people, though, like, it doesn't seem like they work in the mines, so I don't really know. Like, this guy sabotaging it, he may not have to work there, but it seems likely he would. Right.
Yeah. I was trying to remember what Lucy Gray is supposed to look like, and I can't remember how she's described, what her complexion is. I know
very similar to this girl, olive skin and dark hair, I think.
So and I do know that there's sort of like in the first books, there's this whole idea of like people who look like they're from the scene. Mm-hmm. They have like a look to them, and this description of this woman didn't. Even though I couldn't remember Lucy Gray's description, it didn't track with what I kind of remember District 12 people sort of being described as. But, I mean, it literally, you know, could be anybody, so.
Wait, the girl's description here didn't track?
No,
this is like similar to the description of Katniss.
With, like, olive skin?
Yeah.
And I thought they were like pale and had like pale gray eyes and dark hair.
Olive skin, dark hair, gray eyes.
Oh, so I just misremembered. I just remembered wrong. Maybe because
I remember we had like a whole discussion at the start of the first book about how people were like taking issue with a white woman being cast because they felt like olive skin really signaled like a different ethnicity.
And you're right. And the thing is, I'm fucking seeing Jennifer Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've seen the movies now, so that's all I see in my head now. So I had forgotten the book description, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I use the expression "looking forward to" reading the next couple chapters. I am excited to read them. I'm also horrified at what's coming. I feel like I said earlier, I just think it's going to. Oh, you guys! I just know it's not going to be good, and I know it's not going to be good. Nothing can be good. It can't be because I know what he turns into. So it's just like watching a wreck in slow motion is what it's kind of like reading this book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm watching a 50 car pile up on the interstate, and I can't look away, but it's not pleasant to look at.
Yeah, accurate. All right, well, before we wrap this one up, we're going to do the old Welcome to new patrons, Nora Henry and Tori G. Thank you so much for pledging. We really appreciate you. And I really hope that you're enjoying the patrons only content, all the special goodies that you get. And I sent out the postcards for June last week, which I decided to do hashtag aggressively Team Black for House of the Dragon, which we are currently covering. So those of you who are at the $10 and up tier, you will be, hopefully, if you're watching the show. If not, this will be an irrelevant postcard for you. And if you're Team Green, I don't know what to tell you. So.
If you're Team Green, then I have a question for you. Why?
Yeah, you could just be like those angry people who burn stuff on camera to make a point, and you could just like film yourself burning the postcard and looking aggressively into the camera and send it to me. That's fine. But anyway, yeah, so thank you very much to you for signing up, and anyone else who's interested, it's patreon.com/unspoiled, and for $5 a month, basically the cost of like a medium coffee at most places these days, like a medium latte, you can support us, and it like really adds up. It means a lot. So, and I'm going to be reinstating the $1 tier soon. I'm working on some things before I like actually do that. But if you are not able to do $5 a month, which I do get, maybe you could do $1 a month and just get some like lower level access to stuff, which is still, you know, it's still special. It still makes you special.
It's not lower level.
Well, I mean, it's literally a lower tier.
Yeah.
Level.
But it's not a lower level of content.
Well, the content isn't lower level, but it's like the perks aren't as good as higher tiers.
But it's, I mean, okay, fine.
She's really trying to do something here. I'm not cooperating. I'm so sorry.
I don't like the lower level. I didn't care for it. It's I don't like it. You gotta think of something better to say than that. I don't like it.
All right, I'll workshop it. All right, everybody, we love you very much, and until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Are you coming to the tree where dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.